So first of all, thank you guys all for hanging in there. I know the full committee was a little later than they thought they would be. So at 7:43, I'm going to call the Tuesday, May 6, 2025 school committee meeting to order. Would you all rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I did thank you all for coming, but we do appreciate you all being here. I did not have anyone sign in for public comment. I did just have a couple of people join a little later. Did you guys want to speak? I just want to give you the opportunity if you don't. No? No, that's okay. No worries at all. So thank you all for coming. There is one adjustment that I think we need to make, and that's under 9B.
Yes.
So it should read Fall 2025 Town
town
Meeting
meeting.
article, not 2024. And I understand under communications, a couple members of the board participated in some activities that they want to share.
Yeah, so Allison and I went today to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees Day on the Hill, and we had a great day with other committee members. We talked about a few legislative items that are being pushed by the MASC. And then we actually met with Ken Sweezy afterwards. He's great. He made sure that he didn't have any time in his schedule, to be honest. But what he did is he went and had lunch with us instead.
That's
because
nice.
he was already scheduled for the entire afternoon, and we signed up kind of late. So, but we talked about some important updates. They're advocating for the adjustment of the Chapter 70 aid, and they're continuing to do that. Another push that we talked to Ken about afterwards was and I know that Paige will like this as well. Have a bill to establish and fund financial literacy curriculum,
That's
which I
great.
think is amazing. So that really should be something that we do. And one other thing that they're doing is they have a bill at the House to support school committees in the superintendent search process, to make it an executive session, because currently if there's if you're searching for a superintendent, not that we're ever going to do this, and I don't want to give Erin any ideas, but what you do is you can do it in executive session, because then you wouldn't be in, usually more than two members want to be involved in the process, and then it becomes an open meeting, and then you have to do the search in open meeting. And that's very difficult for a lot of superintendents who are searching, and it's difficult to ask the questions in public. So now they're hoping to be able to do this in executive session, which I think is important.
And just to be clear for people, right, when the reason that's important isn't because the committees around the Commonwealth don't want the public to know or have access to a potential future superintendent. In the early stages, just like when you apply for a job, you may not want to publicize that you're applying for that job, right? So it really helps the candidate, hopefully would help the wider pool. That's the reason why doing it in executive session is so important. Usually when you're down to the finalists, those are always in public session so that the public can actually see those final interviews and what have you. But I just want to be clear about that.
And then just lastly, there's also some talk about trying to, for circuit breaker funding, trying to get the minimum spend from $52,000 to $40,000, because and then they want to fully reimburse the 75% after. So they're trying to advocate for that as well.
That's great.
So,
Quick question.
I was just going to add that lunch was made by all the VOTECs in
Oh,
the
yes.
state, and so it's
including
really,
South Shore.
Yeah, so it's just fun because they have each school has maybe like 3 to 4 items that they've made, and you kind of get like little pieces of different parts, and it's just kind of cool to see what the kids are able to make.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
cool. That's great.
It was an amazing lunch. So.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Katrina.
Yeah, thank you all
didn't
so
bring
much
any.
for attending. Quick question, I know there was also talk about the special education pre-buy percentage. I know there was a bill. Did you all have a chance to talk about that one?
I think there was a couple questions about that one. I don't think
Yep,
that's
so there's
still-
one that they are advocating for increasing, or
I'm trying
I
to
think
think
it
of.
was more transportation based.
Yeah.
Because they, like, and I think.
No, they
there's
were talking
two.
about the special education,
Was it the-
pre-buy.
was it the
Right, so
pre-buy?
right now
Pre-buy.
you can only pre-buy a quarter a year's
Oh, yeah,
tuition for
right.
a
yeah, and
private
so they're
school,
trying to
so we're talking
increase
about
that
increasing it.
to
Yeah.
like a half or something like that, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like a 2% increase or something.
Yeah,
Great. Well, thank you guys. Really do appreciate you attending. I think having us be represented by both of you was fantastic. Just one other thing under communications I just want to point out. It is Teachers' Day. And I think we would be remiss if we did not thank our teachers here in Pembroke for doing what they do every day for our students, our kids, and for the district. We have a lot of dedicated people that are devoting their careers and their lives to doing this. And at least today, let's all stop and just say thank you all for doing what you do. We appreciate it.
Patrick, I also heard it was Nurses' Day.
Oh.
So, and I know we have nurses on staff,
Thank you
so
to the nurses
we
too.
don't want to
then.
leave you out there.
No, I'm glad you did that. Thank you. We do have bills circulating. We do have meeting minutes from April 15th. I'll entertain a motion to accept the school committee meeting minutes of April 15th as presented.
so moved.
Second.
I have one question. I'm
Go
trying to
ahead.
See if I can
Yep.
find it. There was a question on who somebody, was that in this one? Sorry. Did that get filled in?
The question mark, I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Do we know?
Where's the question mark?
Where's the question mark?
So I'm trying to go back. Oh,
What
yeah.
was it?
It was probably
It was somebody on the advisory committee. Oh, it's the next one.
Oh, yeah, it
Sorry.
says Mr. question mark, asked if there is a plan in place
I
for the
think-
maintenance. It was Mr. Landy.
Oh,
Are we taking these two separately or together? Because we have the one with.
so that's Tim Landy.
with the
Yeah,
select
well,
board.
we can take them separately.
Okay, so it was the next one, that's question.
Quick question, is Ryan, I'm not sure when Ryan is speaking. Is that later in the
Yeah,
agenda?
It's later, yeah.
on the
Oh,
agenda,
okay,
yeah.
I missed it. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the Tuesday, April 15th regular meeting minutes as presented. Motion by Sue, seconded by David. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. It's unanimous, Natalie. Then we have the meeting minutes of Tuesday, April 15th for the joint meeting with the Select Board and Advisory Committee. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Katrina, seconded by Allison. Is there any further discussion?
Will that be amended with Mr.
With
Landy's?
Mr. Landy's
Yeah,
name,
okay.
correct. Other questions or discussion?
Are we sure that was him? I'm
I
just-
am
Yes.
positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know
'Cause I'm just
for a
wondering
fact
if
that it was him.
He would have asked the questions.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah,
I actually talked to him about it after the fact.
perfect.
So hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, it's unanimous, Natalie. And we'll go on to the superintendent's report.
There are two things under my report this evening. The first one is for consideration for approval as part of our tiered purpose monitoring and constant oversight of our special education program. You have in your packet a survey that we would like to send home to special education parents and caregivers, just about the program. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing crazy in there.
So can I get a motion to approve the special education parents caregiver survey as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sue, seconded by Katrina. Are there questions on the survey?
Just to mention that Jessica came to a CPAC meeting and asked for our feedback, so there was an opportunity for parent and family feedback already for the survey.
Oh, that's great.
That was my question.
Yep.
And this is a great survey, too. I just want to make the comment, I'm, really happy that it's being done.
Will this be a Google form? And is it going to be anonymous, or can it be, or is it going to be?
It's anonymous.
Okay, and it's going to be emailed to,
Yep, a link.
and will it be shared only? Like how, because I just want to make sure like the access is available to all families who,
Yeah,
might need to
it's
participate.
directed towards families with special education students, but it'll go out as a link to your special ed families or something.
okay.
Great.
Other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous again, Natalie.
The second item under my report is something we've discussed previously, but I wanted to get it in writing for you all. So consideration for approval for the fall 2025 town meeting article, a placeholder for membership to South Shore Tech. So what you have in your packet is a mock-up of what the words would be. There's obviously, it's truly just a placeholder because we would need to go back and change. In the beginning, it says, will the town accept the provisions of section 16 to 16I?
Aye.
Depending upon what the regional agreement looks like that we work through, that there may be, the section
Sure.
naming might be different. In addition, under the explanation part, I'm going to read it out loud so that folks can hear it, and we can talk about it if you want to. Pembroke Public Schools has been sending students to South Shore Technical High School, formerly South Shore Regional Vocational Technical High School, as a non-member school since its inception in 1962. In the past 4 years, due to the increased popularity of technical education, Pembroke students have been unable to gain attendance as the 9-member towns have filled all of the approximately 640 slots. The town of Pembroke is seeking to become a member of the regional school district in order for our students to be guaranteed a number of slots based on the incoming freshman enrollment. With a positive Pembroke town meeting vote, Pembroke will then need to also receive a positive vote of admittance at 7 of the 9-member towns' annual meetings. In order to fund acceptance into the regional district, Pembroke voters would also need to approve a debt exclusion override to cover our portion of the construction debt associated with the MSBA building project at South Shore Tech. In addition, Pembroke voters would also need to approve an additional override to allow for the funding increase to fund tuitions, transportations, and related costs associated with sending students to South Shore Tech.
Can you read the article too? I think it's
Yeah,
worth just
sure.
putting it out there.
So the article, without a number, is will the town accept the provisions of section 16 to 16I, inclusive of chapter 71 of the Massachusetts General Laws, providing for the establishment of a regional school district, together with the towns of Abington, Cohasset, Hanover, Hanson, Marshfield, Norwell, Rockland, Situate, and Whitman, and for construction, maintenance, and operation of a regional school by said district in accordance with the provisions of a potential regional agreement to be filed with the select board, or take any other action relative thereto. The vote to establish a regional school district is contingent upon the passing of a debt exclusion override as well as the passage of a singular and plural operational override.
Or overrides. Questions?
Do we need to put a projected year onto this, or no?
No. The regional agreement will outline when our first kids would be going.
Good, we're
We all
okay.
have
I wasn't sure if we had to say,
In the regional agreement, we'll have all the economics in it too, correct?
No, the regional agreement is just the words associated with joining and what our share of the debt would be, but the actual debt would be a separate.
But it'll have an amount.
It'll have a formula for how our debt
It'll
is
have a
calculated.
percentage, I got it.
Percentage.
Yeah.
And do we know right now what that's estimated to be? I know we talked about it before.
So
A
our,
range.
our share of the building project would be about $20 million. We would need an additional $1.5 to $2 million to fund the cost associated with sending students there.
Initially, but those creep up every year.
So at full capacity with 84 potential students there, it would be about $2 million.
$2 million, okay, thank you.
And I definitely appreciate us doing it this way because I don't know if people have heard, but Marshfield, their vote for their their debt exclusion failed, and so they're now having to move the building debt into their operational budget, which is pretty dramatic and
Yeah.
potentially devastating to other departments. So I appreciate that we're doing it this way so that we can protect all budgets and have this be its own.
But I will also say, I'm really proud of this committee for getting this done now and for putting this forward now, right? Not every kid is meant to go to college, and not every kid is meant to go take a traditional path in high school, and we desperately need the trades right now. We desperately need kids that want to take their path in the trades and go into apprenticeships, you know, and learn these skills and learn these trades, and vocational education is a way to do it. A couple years ago, when the laws changed and shift, it hurt our kids, and we're all seeing it, right? I mean, it's quite clear that we're all seeing it, and I think we owe it to the town and we owe it to our families to let the town make that determination, right? I don't think any one board of 5 or 2 boards of 5 should be making that decision. I think this is too important, and it's something that the town has every right to decide as a body.
Yep.
So is there any other discussion?
make sure you have the town meeting on your calendar. It's Tuesday, May 13th.
This will not be on.
It's
that
not going to
town
be on it?
meeting,
Well,
just
go to that
FYI.
anyways.
Yes,
At
town
7.
meeting is Tuesday, May 13th, but to be very clear,
Thank you. This is-
we are voting a placeholder for an article on the fall 2025 town meeting.
Thank
So not this one, but the next one. I just,
Thanks for
October or
clarifying.
something.
yeah, it's something like usually third week in October, somewhere around there. So if there is no further question, could I get a motion to approve and put forward as a placeholder article the vocational school
The membership-
fall meeting article?
The membership to South Shore.
Membership to South Shore VOTEC meeting article.
So moved. Second.
Okay, wow.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Sue is the so moved and Allison is the second. It's a tie. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So it is a unanimous vote from the school.
All right, Ryan.
You ready?
Here I go. All right, so I'd first like to say good evening. I would first like to thank you, the school committee, for the opportunity to speak today on policy IKFB-R, graduation dress. I know this is quite the controversial topic at the moment, and I am very excited to share ideas for both this year and the future. As a summary for where the policy is at this moment, policy IKFB-R allows cords to be given to the following groups and/or people: the top 10% of the class, the National Honor Society, and other nationally recognized academic honor societies approved by PHS administration. First, on behalf of Pembroke High School Drama Club and Thespian Troupe 7127, I would like to present my findings on a potential proposal combining academics with participation in the International Thespian Society. When the Thespian Society cord was originally removed from the list of approved graduation regalia, it was under the premise that it was not academic in nature, so it violated the policy, as there is no in-class GPA or general GPA requirement that is tied to the induction. However, while meticulously searching the ITS handbook, I am happy to say that I found a solution. In addition to the general certificate of induction that is awarded for completing 90 hours of your main niche and 10 hours of your alternative, there is a scholar distinction that incorporates a GPA requirement. As stated in the International Thespian Society Handbook, Thespian troupe directors may award the Thespian Scholar distinction to the student if the student is officially inducted into ITS, is currently enrolled in the school and a member in good standing of the troupe, and has earned a minimum cumulative GPA of 3.0 on a 4.0 scale, or its local equivalent for all academic coursework as determined upon completion of 10th grade or any official grading period thereafter. I propose that we offer induction regardless of GPA as long as they are academically eligible, as we already do, and offer a cord to the Thespian scholars who have incorporated academics with their passion for theater to earn this distinction. This is in line with policy IKFB-R, and I would like to submit it for your consideration as Vice President of the Drama Club and as a member and representative of Troop 7127 of the International Thespian Society. It was brought to my attention that an additional concern of the school committee is that the same group of kids, typically the top 10, 20%, are receiving the most regalia at graduation, contributing to the general conversation of inequality that seems to circle this topic. In order to increase the number of students eligible to wear a cord that demonstrates their achievement in an activity outside of academics, I would also like to propose a cord for varsity athletics. There is currently an academic requirement to participate in sports, and a cord for those students who perform at a level worthy of being designated a varsity athlete would symbolize strength and commitment and collaboration outside of the school day, a key topic on the Portrait of a Pembroke Titan. We stress the most importance on our student athletes, and there should be a way to celebrate their efforts at graduation. Moving forward, at our last school committee advisory board meeting, a committee member, Julia Baxter, raised a question of the medals that used to be awarded to Key Club officers. With Ms. Bollinger's assistance, we were able to craft a new achievement as a whole, a community service cord, celebrating students who go above and beyond in becoming engaged citizens, as stated in the Portrait of a Pembroke Titan. The community service cord would be awarded to those students who surpass a certain number of hours. The advisory committee landed on 100 hours as a realistic goal to set, but I would love to hear your opinions on the topic. This could be an opportunity to promote active participation in various communities through civic engagement and demonstrate curiosity, flexibility, and openness to exploring new ideas. If either of those things sound familiar, it is because they are the leading ideals of engaged citizens and empowered learners under our Portrait of a Pembroke Titan. I can say this for sure because not only are they in every room of the high school, but I myself have a personal copy that I received from the school to develop this presentation. We are taught to appreciate and embody the vision of the Pembroke Titan, so why not reward those who excel at it? This is not a new topic, and I know that. Regardless of the decisions that have been made in the past, I'm hoping you can view this with fresh eyes. I know that this is important to students because they've been in arms about it since this new decision was made about 2 years ago. That is why I'm here. Not just for myself, although I have a strong impact on the matter, but because I was elected by my school to bring changes that we want to see to your eyes. It's not an easy fix, I know that. I'm sure it's even harder to make this change for the class of 2025, but that is why it feels especially important to state that as a member of the class of 2025, speaking to you today, these are changes that we ask for this year. It is not too late to order cords, to make a change for the class of 2025 and beyond. Additionally, depending on how well I did on this presentation, you might consider a sash for the school committee representative, as it is one of the only positions voted for by the entire school, works across different levels of legislation to create positive change for the students, and, if I do say so myself, is held by a pretty cool guy. Thank you again for the chance to speak, and I hope to answer any questions you may have so we can further this conversation.
Ryan, Mr. Boyle and I will fund the sash if they'll give it to you.
Let's talk about it.
Price a sash.
It's not that easy.
My
David.
neighbor
We
here
have a
says this.
policy.
I know, I'm
I
about
know.
to say
I
it.
know,
everybody
but I do think he
agrees.
deserves a sash.
I agree.
So, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, right, we have a policy about making policies, right? So we can't just change the core policy here. We'd have to actually suspend that policy. And even if we were to make a new policy, it requires a first read and a second read, which would mean that would have to be fully suspended. However, I don't see, and I'll leave it up to the committee, this is sort of at the will of the committee, asking the policy subcommittee if they can meet and maybe take your requests under advisement to see, and it won't happen between now and the election, it would happen after the election. I don't know if it'll be in time for this graduation, but to see if they'd be willing to make some amendments or some adjustment to the core policy. What do
I
you guys
can speak,
think?
I don't know if Sue was able to kind of give you like a history of do you kind of know a little bit background on
so,
it?
yes.
So just before I got on the committee, there was that committee voted to change the policy to basically have there be no cords. So the idea was graduation is celebrating an equal achievement of all students, right? Like everybody's equally graduating high school. So that at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, that was kind of the idea behind that policy. And there was some
Debate?
Well, the students disagreed and were upset because it wasn't necessarily well publicized that this was changed. I believe that would have been the class of 2023, 4.
My sister was a senior
And
that
so
year.
so that year, it was a little bit of a mess. But so then when that happened, it got brought up to the attention of the committee, who then Sue and I at the time were the ones on policy sub, and we had a number of meetings about it, and went back and forth, met with Mr. Talbot and administration, and there was a lot of discussion again about graduation being an equal achievement and not putting any one graduate above another, and that was part of the discussion. There was the big discussion on making it academic. What was the GPA going to be? Were we going to have different GPAs based on National Honor Society, so there was a lot of discussion. So the current policy, it took a lot to get to that point of the agreement, and we understood that there would be, there's no perfect policy to make everybody happy in that way, either, all, nothing, some, so that's how, at least that's the history of it. And just speaking from like a policy formation, we can't change policy that quickly. Like it's just, I think I'd have to reread, even if we wanted to, it's so, there's procedures in place to prevent things just being changed every month kind of thing, like, like just every year, every 2 years, whatever it might look like. So,
But it's been a couple years,
It- it
right?
has-
So-
it has
You guys
been at
adopted
this
it on
point.
October 3rd, 2023.
Yeah, so I think at this point, it
been a
has
year and a half,
been, with what our standard time frame is. But just, for your own graduation, it's unfortunately, even if, I really appreciate your advocacy for it. Like, I think it's, like, fantastic. That's what we want from our students, is to voice their opinion, and that's how you seek change, and it's very appreciated, that feedback for sure.
May I ask, I understand, especially in terms of the community service and varsity sports, how that is more unrealistic, where for the thespian court, my effort in trying to make it was to more fit the confines of the policy that's already in place, where it does fit into what the outline has already been. What does that mean for this year?
I'd have to.
So the policy
yeah.
says that the Honor Society has to be approved by the administration at Pembroke High School, and at this point, the Thespian Honors Society, as you've described it, has not been approved. The GPA required by our current policy is a 3.5 for any other honor society outside of National Honor Society, which is a 3.7. So to my knowledge, Mrs. Chapman has not approached Mr. Talbot about approving the Thespian Society as an honor society for this school year. It would be very difficult to do that now that it's May 6th. The intent is that you're approving those at the beginning of the year so students know what they're working towards. I don't know that.
If that happened though, if Ms. Chapman approached it for next year.
I'm assuming she's the advisor of the group.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
In
So-
addition to Emily McFarland and Emma Murphy, there are directors
Yeah.
under her.
So if she were to approach the administration at the high school, ask for it to be recognized, we kept the GPA requirements the same as we do for everybody else, and those were met though, that could then be accepted under the current policy.
Correct.
So potentially, and the other part I just want to mention that was discussed during our discussions on it was none of this prevents you or any other student from earning cords and being worn, at pictures or afterward. It's just the ones that were
Kinda
worn
recognized
at
at-
graduation. So that's not preventing at your award night any of that earning those cords that you can,
I think,
whatnot. Like, that was part of the discussion, and it was, it was.
I think it's worth taking another look at based
No,
on.
I would be
he-
happy to.
I
have
think
us
that he
look
made
at it.
some really good points that we hadn't considered. We didn't have the portrait of the Titan then. I really like that he tied that in, and I think he did a great job researching it. And I think we should at least consider it at the
Yeah, no,
policy
it's-
level.
My point was more to just speak to
The history.
the history
Yeah.
and the time frame of.
Right.
that
The
we're
time
on-
frame.
Like, we
that we're
can't do it
under.
for this
It's not
year, but we should at
Right.
least do it for the
the
future.
validity of your argument. It's more just
Yeah.
the procedures that we have.
I also want to recognize that, I think you're absolutely right, Ryan, that we need to look at a whole child when we're thinking about what it takes to play a sport and the teamwork it takes and the time it takes and the dedication it takes. I don't think we should not consider that. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially when you're quoting the vision of a graduate. In particular, the community service corps. I know a number of students who go above and beyond what the requirement is, and that's not necessarily every student, of course, but I do see great value in considering that if we want to raise engaged citizens, especially. I think that's really important, regardless of whether or not it's tied to a certain academic standard. I'd want us to consider that, and I really appreciate all the research that you did and tying it and holding the school committee to the same standards that we hold our students to, so thank you.
Yeah.
I just feel like I really want to message, especially with the community service, accomplishments that aren't academically tied. I mean, I'm lucky with my GPA in a sense of I'm like inducted into the National Honor Society, I'm in Tri-M, etc. But not everyone is motivated by the same academic prowess. Some people might have an accomplishment in community service that doesn't come from a GPA requirement. I think that's something that needs to be considered when we look towards the future and recognizing accomplishments in graduation.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the discussions of how, there are students who getting to graduation, like that was an incredible success that is being celebrated. And there's other students who are celebrated in other ways. And that's why, it's a big discussion, and it's, trying to make sure that we're
I-
making sure everybody is celebrated and recognized for.
I think one of the discussions we had, though, just kind of playing devil's advocate for a little bit, is the class night was a time when, in the sports night or the awards night, whatever they officially call it, were kind of the time that certain people got their recognition. And then the graduation, was kind of a different type of thing. And I think if you look at the way graduation has always been set up, we always have the valedictorian speak, number 2, number 3, that type of thing. Again, I could make an argument for both sides. I'd be interested to see what, policy sub comes back with, but I know that was a lot of the original discussions, is we're gonna honor the athletes, we're gonna honor the kids at class night, the scholarship night, that type of stuff. So that's just want to bring the point up.
Yep.
I actually think the awards night is a strong and a valid way to look at this, in the sense that you are absolutely honoring kids, then and there. Graduation, I do think, is something that is a little different, in the sense that it's when your whole family is there, it's when everybody's there. And I'm going to take even a little bit of a different perspective. I won't be here, right, when you all kind of bring this back, but I think it's important to recognize achievement. And I think it's important for us as a district and us as a school to recognize those kids that have pushed themselves and have excelled and have gone above and beyond, whether it be in the Thespian Society or athletics. On the flip side, you also don't want to try to, everybody gets a cord, because I think that candidly diminishes the cord, right? I think that the diploma is the recognition of everyone that's made the minimum requirements for graduation, and their name is announced, and they come up and they shake the hand of the awesome school committee person and the principal, and that is that recognition, right? But I think kids that go above and beyond in whichever method we deem is appropriate, I think should be recognized, right? And those cords are kept for a long time. It's looked at is an achievement, an amazing achievement. I personally think that the thespian cords and the varsity athletic cords are a great idea, right? And the fact you've been able to tie them back to an academic requirement is important. What I would say, though, is everyone should have the same academic requirement, right? So if it's a 3.5, it's a 3.5, right? If it's 3.7, I do think NHS should be a bit different, and we talked about that for a long time here. But I think having the same GPA requirement, but recognizing these kids going above and beyond, because I'll tell you right now, I watched it with my kids, I think you can speak to it. If you're an athlete or you're in a lot of the thespian activities, these kids are balancing unbelievable schedules. They're doing homework on buses. They're up till 2 in the morning because the meet went till 10. They're literally, you see all these kids on the side of a track, scribbling in notebooks and kind of doing what they can. These kids are going so far above and beyond, and recognizing that achievement, I think is something we should consider.
Keep in mind that those achievements are
I
recognized
know,
on graduation day in the program, so there's a whole host
I
of
agree.
symbols
I
there too.
agree. But a cord has always been it's an
It's a
outward
visual,
symbol.
right, I
Yeah,
understand.
that's true.
Well, I have to say that you really advocated for your class and your school really well. And I think your speech was amazing. You did a great job. You researched it well. And you gave us a lot to think about. So thank you so much. You've been a great addition this year on the committee. So we love
Good
having
job,
you.
Ryan.
Thank you for
Thank
taking
you,
the
Ryan.
time.
Did you
I
have-
think I might be able to get the sash, so.
I don't know if you're kidding. I'll sit
No,
alphabetically
I-
with everyone else, but
No,
come on.
And I told you, David and I will pay for it if we
I-
have to.
I brought it up to
Vote
Mr.
on it.
Talbot.
So the thought process behind the sashes, and as it's worded in the policy, was that sashes should only be given to students that were elected by the entire student body, right? Because there was a period of time where it was just the school officers and then the executive board members. And the executive board members were only voted on by a small group of students, which is why they no longer have a sash, but the class president and the vice president do. You were voted on by the student body, so.
You qualify.
think
He
you
thought it
guys
was a
just-
joke.
I didn't realize the E-board had lost their.
They don't have them, no.
And he also
He
put up
has
with us for a
presentation.
year. So,
I'm like, that's what I.
Ryan, did you have other points that you wanted to make?
No, but on the topic of the executive board. I feel for them now. It's terrible.
Are you sure you're not going to law school? I just.
Being in DC that long, we'll see.
That's,
I know because I told the
Mark to order
business
that.
on Instagram, but do you want to give us?
Sure. I just
plan?
committed to American University for the class of 2029.
Dad, good job.
That's my father.
I'm only texting Mark right now to order the salad. Oh
my God.
Anything else?
And tell him Patrick's paying.
What's
I
great
hate it.
is that when I was writing that speech, I was like, you know, what'll be funny is like at the end, I'll like, you're like, oh my God, I want a sash, and then
So you
that's the
got
one point I'm
nothing
walking
else but
out.
shut
So,
You achieved your end goal.
yeah, I'm sure that Thespian the group's gonna
Hey,
be thrilled.
Dave, a
with me.
shout out to you and Tracy. You raised a hell of a son there. They're my neighbors, in full disclosure. We live around the corner from each other. But I've watched this young man grow up to be a fine young man, his older sister. Parenting is a tough, tough skill. You guys did it well. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay. Policy sub.
Sure. Under policy sub, the first item is consideration for second read and approval, policy KF, community and other use of school facilities and grounds. So we took this as a first read in the beginning of April. What policy sub kind of shared at that time, and I'm happy to share on behalf of Katrina and Allison, and then you can step in if I miss something, was really extending how we manage the interior of our school buildings to the grounds of our school buildings over the course of the school day. So understanding that currently our schools have always been community buildings, but during the school day, it's really reserved for students and staff. We would like that same reservation to include the grounds as well. So by posting what school hours are at each building, similar to, there's a sign on our playground that says you can't use the playground during the school day because the kids are using the playground during the school day. So doing that with the grounds, and just re-emphasizing that when folks are at the school for an event that they've been invited for, or that's open for people to come to, that we do have a process by which people are screened before they are allowed into the building. So I think that was everything.
I did have one question on this. We talked about Pembroke, Boy Scouts of America, Girl Scouts of, isn't it one group now? And isn't it like one universal name?
No, but
No?
I was going to actually ask for an edit. So there's still two separate groups.
They are.
So I was
Okay.
kind of wondering if we can just change it to Pembroke Scout Troops or Scout Associations, just so not.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't.
Scout.
I just didn't want to get caught up,
Scout
Scouting
associations or what?
Yeah, just scouting.
Troops.
Well, they're not all troops. 'Cause
Some
How
are
about a
packs.
Troops or packs?
There's packs, there's
just
dance.
I would
there's
work
dance,
as
packs,
scouting
groups.
organizations.
Oh my
I
God.
know. it's
The
a lot.
scouts are allowed to use the building for free. Oh my God.
I know. There's a name.
Patrick.
What do you want the word to say? Scout organizations?
Pembroke Scout Groups.
Groups.
Okay.
I think Scouting America covers it all.
Well, but not Girl Scouts. But not Girl Scouts. No.
Okay.
So
Got
that's-
it. I got the
So
edit.
just
There's still.
scouting groups.
No.
So can I, okay, guys, I'm going to try and regain some control here. Can I get a motion to accept for second read and approval policy KF, community and other use of school facilities and grounds?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Katrina, seconded by Sue. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous.
Hi.
Hi.
The next item under policy sub is the continuation of the conversation from April 15th. So at the time, on April 15th, policy sub had made a recommendation to include some revised language in the athletic handbook. That conversation sparked another conversation in regards to the current policy that we have, policy JJIB, participation in interscholastic athletics, and the desire of at least one school committee member to make a revision to that policy. We have gone back and forth a lot over the past couple of weeks about this. I did seek a legal opinion from both Joe Emerson and James Pender. We have two counsels right now. The opinion was the same, that your current policy, BGB, policy adoption, articulates how new policies and revisions to policies are brought to the full committee. It is their legal opinion that in order for someone at this table, outside of policy sub, to make a recommendation to change a current policy, that you would need to suspend policy BGB. So what you're doing, you'd be suspending BGB and saying that it's an open conversation amongst the body of 5 of you, as opposed to a conversation that per BGB is reserved to happen at policy subcommittees.
So I am going to speak on this because I asked for the language to be considered and then I asked for a recommendation to be brought back. Because I categorically disagree with the legal opinion, and that's fine. It's my purview to do that, and I'm allowed to do that. Having said that, I also believe that as a body, we have to listen to our advisors, right? And we really do. And we have to be mature enough to be able to take that advice and understand that these things are there for a reason. The reason we suspended the discussion is because there was a concern that it was going beyond what was on the agenda. So we suspended the discussion, which was wholly appropriate at the time, because I do not believe that we go above and beyond either what the law is, in this case open meeting law, or that anything that we're going to pass is going to be challenged on a legal technicality, that we are going to do what is appropriate, which is why we suspended the discussion so that we could add this to the agenda. However, and while I may come to the same place, I think, as what our legal advisors did, I want to be careful because there are going to be controversial topics that come before this committee. And I think we have to really understand not only the folks here, the two potential candidates running for the seat this coming year are also in the audience, which is why I think this is really important. When you look at the minutes that we passed, and if you actually look at our agenda, and I purposely pulled it up, which is why I have my phone open, this was under a policy subcommittee. And it was discussion of PHS athletic handbook revision general participation. And that led to a series of discussions in that, should it just be in the handbook or should it be in the policy? That is absolutely an appropriate conversation. In the minutes, it actually says the policy subcommittee proposes two solutions. First, maintaining the current policy under JJIB, and second, since disciplinary practices for Pembroke Public School students and coaches are outlined in our student handbooks rather than in the form of policy, the policy subcommittee recommends that there be no penalties for forfeiting games due to safety concerns in the handbook. Goes on in a secondary paragraph to say, at this point, it was Katrina added that the subcommittee recommends several actions. First, to consider the mandatory use of corner masks during penalty corners in field hockey. Second, to review data from the fall season due to a policy change that requires a full year of monitoring for field hockey. Additionally, to monitoring athletic data for Pembroke for sports with the highest rates of contact-related injuries, including football, wrestling, ice hockey, lacrosse, basketball, soccer, and field hockey. The reason I'm reading that is there were recommendations that were made by policy subcommittee to this committee, and I fully believe, under all of the rules, that those are debatable. However, when I review policy BGB, thank you, it is very clear how we make policy as a body. And that is, we bring a first reading, we put it out there, and then we give our members the ability to do their research and get educated and everything else. In a second reading, and it says, at a subsequent meeting, at least 2 weeks and no more than 8 weeks after the first reading, the policy shall be placed on the agenda for a second reading and action. It would be, because there was no policy change recommended by the policy subcommittee, it really would be impossible without suspending this policy to add policy language to the policy, which is probably where that's ultimately getting, because we wouldn't have had a first read and because we wouldn't have had a second read. It's not that that language and the language that was brought forth by the policy subcommittee is not debatable. It 100% is, because they brought forward a recommendation to the wider body. However, we can't add language to the policy without suspending this as a first read and a second read. So I just want to make that very clear. I know it's very technical and it gets a bit confusing, but we're going to have hard topics that we're going to talk about under policy, and the key is that we're consistent. I actually applaud both Katrina and Allison for pointing out some of these items and some of these things, and I also applaud Sue for doing her research in some of the other areas. So having said that, we do have to suspend this policy, if we want to put forth anything. Where this ended is my understanding, and I want to be clear before I ask for a vote to suspend the policy, and then I'll explain how that's going to work. The motion that was on the table that was suspended, and this is now the conversation that we are picking up, was to take the language that Katrina and Allison worked on, personally feel is very good language, because it was wide, and it focused on safety, which was my concern. I cannot stress enough, my concern here is safety, and is opportunity for our female athletes. I think both of those things are incredibly important. The language that they did a lot of research on to come out was about safety. It was about not just male athletes or female athletes, but facility condition, weather, anything that may injure a student. And I think that that is important in a wider piece of language, and actually is better than the Dighton Rehoboth language that I asked them to look at. I also want to make very, very clear something. And we received a couple of letters of support that were making this solely a transgender issue. It is not. I am not motivated by a transgender issue. I am motivated by the safety of our female athletes. And that is why I asked for this. I've always stood up for our athletes. I've always stood up for our students. And I'm going to continue to do so right through the last minute of my last meeting. So in order to put that motion back on the table, we do have to suspend the policy. So I'm going to ask for...
Sorry, can I just interject?
Yeah.
I rewatched the meeting and that wasn't the motion on the table.
Okay, that's okay.
It was that, the motion on the table was not with the updated language.
But I did turn to Sue and I said, would you amend your motion to the updated language? Would you change it? And she said yes. That's okay.
Yeah,
And that's just, so for sake of argument, that's fine. We can have a
and
different
again,
understanding.
So just so I understand what you're asking right now, you are asking us to suspend BGB so we can go back to that discussion on
Correct.
that
On
was
JJIB.
So as a first read.
Well, we would be suspending it for the first read and the second read. That's what I'm asking.
Suspending the policy, so
We're
you don't need
suspending
to
the
read.
policy, so.
So you want the whole
So you
thing,
wouldn't
okay.
need to do a first read and a second read.
Understood.
No, and I think it's important because everyone's going to vote the way they're going to vote. But that's what I'm asking
that's
the
what I
committee
wanna-
to do. I
that's
want to
what
be
I wanna-
completely clear.
So, and just another point, our language doesn't just protect female athletes. It
I
protects
agree.
male
It protects
athletes.
all
So
athletes.
I understand that
I-
that was your intent, but I just want to make sure, like, this covers all athletes because of the variety of conditions.
And it should.
Yeah. So I just
100%
wanna make
should.
sure
I agree.
Question, is there an intention to have it be put into policy and not the athletic handbook?
So I think putting it in the athletic handbook, which you've brought forward.
And we didn't vote on.
And we didn't vote on. We can vote on that. I personally think it should be in the athletic
But
handbook,
that's
yes.
not on the agenda.
I would totally agree
Right, the
with
full
you.
athletic handbook is not.
The full
required.
Even
athletic
the
handbook isn't there.
revision.
No,
isn't.
we've never,
Right,
it
yeah.
didn't.
So, well, and if you remember, the last meeting when I asked about that, I was told that we're not voting on the athletic handbook, that you were
Correct.
bringing the language forward, that you were all recommending be put in that when you vote on the athletic handbook.
Right.
I was responding to Katrina's question, is
Okay.
it being put in the athletic handbook? I think it should be put into the athletic handbook, yes.
But none of that has been voted on, is what I'm
Correct,
saying.
but you're going to vote
Yeah,
on the
no.
athletic handbook
Correct.
as a whole.
That's what I'm just clarifying, that nothing has been voted on yet. So even
Correct.
though we've proposed.
Nothing
language,
has been voted on. yet.
Nothing has been
I would
approved.
agree with
Okay,
that.
that's just what I want to have clarified.
And this vote would be to suspend the policy, to have it be considered as a policy?
Correct.
Okay.
To be, have the, so, well, right now, the language, I will just take your word on this for right now, and, because you went back and
And it can be-
rewatched it,
and
I
that's what can be
appreciate it. But,
discussed.
right, so right now, the language is the original language that Sue read directly. I think it needs to be the language that you all have, but I don't even want to debate that unless we suspend the
I
policy.
understand. Yeah, I just wanted,
okay?
I was getting clarification on what is happening, to make sure. I
So I'm going to make a motion to suspend policy BGB for consideration and approval of additional language regarding student safety. I'm just going to leave it like that in a generic way.
I second.
Okay. So I made the motion and Sue is seconded. By roll call vote on this suspension, Sue?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
No.
So it fails. And the reason it fails, which is similar to what happened about a year and a half ago, you need a 2/3 vote of the committee to suspend the policy.
Four-fifths.
4/5.
Well, you actually need, I think it's 2/3.
I have the other one. I think it was 4/5.
Either way.
It doesn't matter. Either way, you need 4 votes. Because 2/3 or 4/5, 2/3 is more than 3. And you cannot get a third of a person voting, so you need 4. So we cannot discuss adding it to the policy, but I understand everyone is committed, and I will be here for that meeting to hold you accountable for
Yes.
adding it to the athletic handbook.
And
You're
just-
correct.
And just to be, the athletic handbook will be June?
When I bring you all the handbooks, we're targeting June, but
Yeah,
you
that's,
never
I just
know.
want that.
And absolutely, I think we did all of that research because we really felt good about that decision. So I am making a promise that we're going to add it to, that is my intention, to add it to the athletic handbook since we've researched
And it's
all
our
about
current- And it's our
this.
current practice, like that's
Yeah.
what we talked about last time.
I'm not going to change my mind because of whatever. I'm planning on
It's-
doing that.
Here's the other thing I'm going to throw out, and again, we had 2 candidates in the audience, I have all of you around the table. There are sometimes you can be passionate about things, right, when you're around this table and going back and forth. Mike Tropiano and I almost went over the table at each other a couple of times, right? Because we just vehemently disagreed on a couple of things, and then we walked out joking arm in arm. You've got to be willing and mature enough to accept the fact that a vote was taken, and any time is a body of 5 when that vote is taken, you accept the vote, right? So we went through this process. I believe it should have been part of the policy, which I've already stated. We took a vote, the vote failed, and now we are going to move on together. Thank you, by the way, all for doing that. Future meeting dates and topics.
So we are meeting next Tuesday ahead of town meeting. It usually posts just for a few minutes, so I think the meeting starts at 7.
7, yeah.
7. But you all are supposed to check in before that, so what time would you like to post for?
I pressed for 6:30.
Yeah, 6:30.
6:30.
Is that,
And that's at Town Hall.
No,
The
it's
high
at
school,
the high
rather. I'm
school.
sorry, the high school.
High
That's
school
what I meant to
will
say.
be
doesn't
there.
kill me.
In conversation, you should, your meeting should remain open because we do have a couple of articles on the warrant. I believe that they're going to be looking for one of you all to be able to present the article on the stop arm, the bus video stop arm, because that is something purely that the school committee move forward. Obviously, we would be there if there are questions in regards to any of our capital items or our budget, but the stop arm in particular is.
That's fine.
Is a school committee
Is
item.
everybody planning on going? I'm just confirming that they'll be.
yeah, I
Yes.
think the fact that I would ask you all to try to be there if you can. If we're asking the town to spend money on behalf of the committee, the least we can do is show up.
Your next meeting after that would be May 20th, at which point you would meet and reorganize.
Is the worst meeting of the year.
It's horrible.
It's Aaron's favorite meeting.
Hate it. And then at that point, depending on the makeup of the committee, we can decide on other dates
Subcommittees
after
and-
that,
yep.
subcommittees.
Can we talk about having that one start at 6? Because I know
Yeah.
the change was due to the member who's not returning to us.
So I'll post the
Wow.
5:20 meeting for 6
I'm
o'clock.
not lying.
You're not lying.
Got
Everybody
it.
got that 5:20? It's 6 o'clock.
So just looking at this, that's the same
I'll
as
score it.
Fest, just throwing that out there.
Sure.
Is there a moment where I could just ask one more question and
course.
a statement,
Absolutely.
circling back? I'm not gonna lie.
Go ahead.
That'll be graduation day. No kidding.
I know we mentioned, you said in the policy handbook, it is a 3.5 minimum for all.
It's 3.5 for all PHS-approved honor societies and a 3.7 for National Honor Society.
One fun thing, because I know that handbook front and back. There is an additional distinction under Vice President's Scholar distinction, which is a 3.5 GPA. If I were to approach Mr. Talbot or another administrator tomorrow or within the week about creating a cord under a 3.5 GPA, does that still require an adjustment to the policy schedule, or could that
Not
be
to the policy,
handled?
but the handbook says that only approved honor societies. And so the Honor Society would have to be approved by Pembroke High School administration. And the intent of that language is for that to happen at the beginning of the school year so that students know what they're working towards over the course of that year. It would not be you that approaches Mr. Talbot, it would be the advisor for the club, right? But I'm sure he's open to that conversation, and if we can figure it out, we'll figure it out. But
And then one other, not the e-board thing's really stuck with me, so I just want to say one thing and then I'll be done. When we elect as a class members of our to then serve as our officers and they go on to vote for our executive board, they're serving as almost electors for the general people, and as opposed are in a way elected by the general, like the school population I'm not aware if that's not how it is viewed upon by the committee or by this administration. But it feels worthy of a reconsideration of whether or not the executive board should be awarded sashes when they work so very hard for our school.
sure, and we can talk about that when we talk about the language. The way the language is written right now, it wouldn't be for the class of 2025, but if it's something you all want to reconsider. Keeping in mind also that in years past, the officers of National Honor Society also had sashes. There was a lot of sashes. It wasn't just, so I think in an effort to kind of rein that in a little bit, was the intent of that language. But when you look at the policy again, we can look at all the language.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all.
Okay. I'm telling you, law school, God, law school. Anything else on future meeting topics?
I know I've mentioned it, but are we gonna get the strategic plan?
Once you all are a committee, we will talk
just don't
about
want
what
the
that
summer
looks
to
like.
start being booked out
I
and-
understand that.
Okay. Any other future meeting topics or agenda items?
Just reminding people to vote. Please vote.
May,
May 17th or now. Early voting is at the town hall. You can check the website for information. And on Saturday, May 17th is the actual election day, and that is at the community center. And we have our lovely candidates both here, Katrina Scarziotti and Paige Graziano. The end.
Okay, so I just wanted to say something. So our select board worked with our town clerk to make a unofficial ballot for children to come
Yes.
with their parents to vote, and it's pretty awesome. So only children can vote. It's going to be shared with the select board, which will be the official policymakers of the town. So to vote, they have to fill in the oval. So question 1 is, should the town of Pembroke officially declare a hot dog to be considered a sandwich? So the answers are yes, a hot dog is a sandwich, or no, a hot dog is not a sandwich. So I think that is a pretty fun thing. So if you have not voted yet, and bring your kid and let them vote, and we'll see what the decision is.
and if I have the maturity of a kid, can I still vote?
I think they'll
No comments.
they'll be checking IDs.
I just want a
Okay.
hot dog.
No, I wish we could check IDs when we voted. Okay, anything else? So the last thing on the agenda, and I've asked for this to be added to the agenda, is my closing comments. I do just want to take a brief moment and thank the Pembroke community. I started doing work for Pembroke Public Schools on a redistricting parent group in 2004. I then ran for school committee in 2006, and I was incredibly honored to be elected to this body in 2007 that I served straight through until 2019. I was elected 4 times, and I thought I was done. A couple years ago, I came back because I did feel as though we needed a little more experience. A lot of new people were on the committee, and then even though I thought I wasn't going to do it, I asked the people of town to allow me to serve out the remainder of this term just a year ago. In the 21 years that I've been involved in public education in Pembroke, it has truly been one of the honors of my life to be able to do this. It is so important that we allow and we give the space for parents and people in this town to volunteer their time and give of their talents. Everyone up here is a volunteer, and they take a lot of heat, and their families take a lot of heat. It's hard right now, I think, to do this, but it is an incredible honor to be able to sit around this table. I believe with every fiber of my being that the role of the people around this table is to protect our kids and to stand up for our kids and to put our kids at the forefront of everything we do. I did not always succeed at doing that. I tried my hardest, and I know I didn't always succeed. Nobody can, right? But I think if you think about how it affects kids, and you ask kids what they think, and then ask families what they think and parents what they think, you're going to do a really good job sitting around this table. We make mistakes. We're fallible. We're human beings. But if you are here with a pureness of heart and for the right reasons, you are going to do a fantastic job. You don't have to always get tripped up on the technicalities. The administration's here to help you. But on behalf of myself, my wife, and my daughters, I thank this community for allowing me to serve for as long as I have. And I ask you to give the grace and the dignity to the people that sit around this and other tables and understand that they are volunteers. So thank you very, very much. And with that, I will take a motion to enter
We get to say
executive.
nice things about you?
What's
Yeah,
that?
are we
A
allowed
little
to
round
talk?
robin on the table here?
All right, go ahead. I wasn't going to.
I don't,
You go, Dave.
I
Yeah,
would be
you go.
honored to start. And I would say this kind of jokingly, but I've always used the thing that behind every good man is a better woman. In your
In my case, that's
in
that
your
stage.
case. And I've always said it in a shock mother-in-law, so I'm 2 for 2 on both of those with you. No, Patrick, it has been an honor to work with you, to know you. I am proud to call your girls my nieces. I did one of your daughter's recommendations for college. What they've become, what you and Sabrina have done is amazing, what you have done for this town. And it's it, I know we're kind of preaching to the choir here. This is a tough job. You know, no one ever calls you to say, wow, what a great job you did. Most people call to tell you that you're a bleeping this or a bleeping that. And I've always used the expression, you go into Stop and Shop and, you know, the frozen food melts because somebody gets a piece of your ear. I've seen this man rise above controversy, anything you name it. And I will say on a personal note, Patrick was kind enough to eulogize my wife when she passed away 7 months ago. And the only thing I tease him about is all my friends from Pembroke knew him, and all my friends from back on the North Shore said, who's the guy talking about Karen? So that's, I just have to throw that out there, Patrick, to embarrass you a little. But no, my friend, it has been an honor and a pleasure, and I'm so proud to have served with you, my brother. All right, stay. Do the best. Love you.
Who wants to follow that one?
I can go. I think, you know, it's clear that sometimes Patrick and I disagree, and I think we do so in a really respectful way. And I think that the integrity and the reasonableness that you bring and have brought is so appreciated, and it's a good example for our town to see people that can disagree and still, like you said, walk out of the room and shake hands. And I just really appreciate the example that you've set, the things that you've taught me as a new school committee member, and I thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say I've learned a lot, like, listening and watching, and
Thank
I
you.
know you made us all better, at least I can speak at least for myself, but I think everybody else, like, we're better because we've been able to watch you this
That was kind.
couple.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, your talents, you know, your service to the community. So appreciated. You know, I've learned a lot over the last couple of years, some good, you know, some bad, but it's all good.
It's all good.
And
It's all learning.
we've all come out on top, and really your leadership has really taught us to all work together as one unit, and if we take nothing else, that's, to me, the
Yeah.
most important piece, so.
Thank you.
Well, I suppose if we're all going around the table.
I was waiting for it.
I got you a sash. What more do you
Say
need?
you got a sash.
I want to.
I got here a little late, as we all know, but I've definitely learned a lot. It's been quite the eventful half of a year. It's been amazing to be on the council. I've obviously learned so much from all of you, and perhaps I'll reach out for an internship this summer, next summer, all of the summers. We'll see. Check in.
Awesome. I tried to move directly to executive session because I'm not good at that piece of it. Thank you all for your kind words. It means a tremendous amount. I really appreciate it. So now I will take a motion to enter executive session pursuant to Chapter 30A, Section 21A3 and 21A1 to discuss strategy related to collective bargaining and an open meeting law complaint as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the legal position of the school committee as declared by the chair.
So moved.
A motion by Katrina, seconded by Sue, by roll call vote. Sue?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Allison? Katrina?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. We are in executive session.
Thank you all
Thank you,
for coming.
everybody.
We're gonna move to this piece.